To me, this whole thing just shows the danger of permissiveness because you happen to like someone and their policies, and when you are permissive to somebody like that, you at the same time you allow a bunch of shit that in the individual instance doesn't seem that bad, but in the aggregate leads to truly horrible things.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Before You Speak podcast. I'm your host, Derek Peterson. Just processing the fire hose of my news feed with this guy over here.
Hey everybody, I am Elwin, and the fire hose of my news feed is filled with illegal immigrants coming over here for birth tourism.
That's it. They're
Well,
like, we're going to go on vacation around 7-8 months when she's pregnant, and, just so we can land some citizenship.
oh, that's a term. That's a thing that came up in the opinion. Birth tourism is a fucking term that people use.
All right. Let's
Yeah.
what are we fucking doing? All right, well, we're gonna get into that in a second, but let's
Yeah.
start with something lighter, because I just watched, I think, the best soccer game I may have ever seen in my life. Egypt goes up 2-0, and which should have actually been 3-0 on one of the best goals I'd seen that got called back on a dumb call. And I will say this. World Cup has some of the most inconsistent refereeing I have ever seen in any sport. And a penalty kick inside of the game, not penalty kicks after the game to decide it, but a penalty kick inside of the game is the most valuable penalty in all of sports I've come to decide. So many of these games are decided by one goal, and a penalty kick, you've got to have like a plus 60% odd of making it. That is the most unfair advantage in all of sports. But I guess it's you can never change that now, but it's
I mean, it's like a penalty shot in hockey, right? Like one-on-one.
yeah, but hockey, the goal is way smaller.
Yeah.
To be honest, and the goalie fills up half of it. So,
I don't know how people miss penalty kicks.
that's the that's the thing. It's like a penalty kick in soccer is almost like you're just giving them the goal. And then
Yeah.
Messi got one blocked in this game, which was crazy. And then in the last 15 minutes, Argentina's down 2 goals, and Argentina comes back and scores 3 goals to win the game, which is just bananas. And all of them were incredible. So fun to watch. Not fun to watch was the opposite, which is the game that I called last night. Right before it started, I told my wife, I'm like, Belgium is about to ransack the U.S. And I'm pretty sure we could feel the entire world wanting us to lose worse than anything in the world. And I wish I had videoed it, but I called it with my wife. I was like, we're about to lose 4-1. And we did.
Yeah.
So
I find I know very little about soccer. I'm not a soccer fan. But I've talked about it the last couple of weeks. I'm loving the scenes and the energy from the World Cup. But then I there's plenty of moments where I get to watching it and I'm like, I don't understand. Like, there's a moment in the game last night where one of the U.S. players just tackled one of the Belgian players. It's like, okay, and it was called a free kick for Belgium. It was like midfield, not some massive play, but like, no, he put both his arms around him and fell over and brought him down with him. And they're like getting up, screaming like somehow that's not a penalty. And I'm like, and the announcers are like, well, they're dissecting. I'm going, he tackled him. Like, you've showed that replay like 3 times. He tackled, like, that's a penalty. Why are we still talking about this? Move on. It's a fucking free kick, and let's go. What there's a ton I don't understand about it. The thing that I don't understand the most, and this is like I guess this makes me a bad American, is like I watch how this country goes crazy about men's soccer every 4 years for 22 days, and then we forget about it for 1,200 days after that. And then we go crazy like somehow this is a sport that we like deeply care about. You know, it's like, and it's just like I have almost an allergy to it. I have a backlash against it where it's like, yeah, no, I want the United States to win, but like I'm more interested in other countries that have way more invested in it, right? Like
Yeah,
if it's a sport that we're good at, like hockey in the Olympics or stuff like that, yeah, I'm all in. But we have no business winning the World Cup. You
we
know,
will
we
never
have
win the
no
World Cup.
right.
We
So
will.
why are we acting like we're going to? Like I don't know. I have just a weird
No.
relationship to World Cup soccer. So I was texting my friends last night. I was like, cool. Now I'll look forward to nobody talking about the U.S. men's soccer team for 4 years.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I don't even know. And half of the time, the national soccer teams turn over. They change players so often that I'm like, I don't even know. And all those players play at different clubs all over the world. So it's so hard to follow all of the ins and outs of it. But I will say, watching dudes break away towards the goal and then just having another dude grab their jersey and pull them down to stop it. I'm like, how is this not, that should be a penalty kick. That
Yeah,
should that
yeah.
should like just clearly knowing that you're about to get beat and grabbing the dude. Basketball actually fixed that. They if you foul a guy intentionally on a fast break, they get 2 free throws and the ball back just to make up for it because it's
Well, that's a penalty shot in hockey too. If you pull a guy down on a fast break, yeah,
yeah.
that's a penalty shot.
I was like, how
Um,
is this not a thing here? But whatever. All right, enough World Cup. Nobody cares about soccer anyway.
and yes, we stopped caring around 8:30 last night.
Yeah, we're 6 minutes into this podcast and I don't care anymore. So let's talk about real quick. I just wanted to touch news surfacing again. A report that came out that during the Biden era, 30% the a 30% increase in housing is basically blamed on illegal immigrants. When you do a deeper dive into the document that was actually released, and I have not fully read it in full disclosure, but I always take these things with a grain of salt because these metrics are one impossible to actually calculate with like uh in the fullness of our country. We have a huge country, and understanding all of the properties that are sold to whom and why is just a feat that feels like insurmountable. But a couple things that like worthy of noting here is that one, yes, illegal immigrants have need a place to live, so they impact housing to some degree. But this rhetoric that they're buying housing and causing housing prices to rise, that's to me just ridiculous. Been doing it 11 years. Never sold a house to an illegal immigrant. You have to have documentation to buy a house. You don't have to be a citizen to buy a house, but you do have to have documentation, and you also have to have a down payment that's sourced. So those two things restrain people from purchasing houses. And even if you're trying to buy a house in cash, that money has to be sourced now. They've changed those laws over the last few years, or over the last, I think it's been like 10 years. So title companies have to source cash deals as well. You have to prove that it's not drug money, essentially. So yeah, like this stuff is silly. So does illegal immigrants causing rent prices in certain areas to go up? Potentially. Uh, do they have a huge impact on the housing market as a whole? No. I wish they did though, because I have some houses under 300K in Kyle that I would love to sell to just about anybody at the moment. So.
th- this whole illegal immigration drives up housing prices is I don't know. I don't want to call MAGA stupid, even though I call them stupid a lot. But the reason that I call them stupid a lot is because of shit like this. Like this is fucking stupid. This is on its face absurd. This is on its face, you know, Republican politicians, Mike Johnson and Stephen Miller saying, what's bad in this country? Housing prices are too high. Great. Tie illegal immigrants to it. Right?
Yeah.
There's no thought. If you think about it for 2 seconds, like they escaped these people are escaping poverty in Venezuela to come and buy a house in the United States. where did that money come from? Come on, they just don't have the money,
Yeah,
right?
in the
And
most
I
expensive
don't think
housing
that's
market in the world,
right.
essentially.
I don't think that this is like racist to say. Like, no, I think it's pretty easy to say that like illegal immigrants, certainly the ones that the right is really mad about coming into this country, they don't have the money to buy a house. It it
It
just
just
it
think
4 seconds
through
of
it.
thought and the argument
Yes.
is over. But they keep feeding this red meat out because people just buy it and they regurgitate it and it feeds the fear and the fire of racism and anti-immigrant rhetoric and just emotion. So yeah, sorry, if you believe that, 30% rise in housing prices in Austin is due at all to illegal immigrants, you're stupid.
Yeah.
You're stupid. I'm sorry. I apologize to anybody I just called stupid, but I don't really because you're actually stupid. Think for a
No,
second.
the 30% rising in housing prices in Austin was caused by tech bros from San Francisco. So like
Yeah.
there's a that, and that is very clearly documented across the board. You want to look at, you could do an analysis of every person that grossly overpaid for a house from 2020 through 2023, and most of them were people from out of state, New York, California, Miami, places people have very high incomes, didn't care paying 100K over list price on a house that never should have sold for that, and then ended up underwater on it. So, but
I heard today that there are houses in San Francisco that are going for 1 million over list.
yeah,
Uh, and
I've heard
ma-
the SpaceX
math,
IPO, right?
yeah, math and AI. Uh,
Yep.
and math and statistics it's just math and statistics. Is if Austin goes up 50% and San Francisco goes up 50% and Dallas goes up 50% and like 5 or 6 big cities are overweighting the national average, the national increase. Well, that matters. And I don't know, it's just not illegal immigrants that are fueling the increase in housing costs.
No, dude, illegal immigrants are doing everything. They're, killing our babies and our puppies and clubbing baby seals. They're stealing our health care and our jobs because they're taking our houses. They're burning down our national parks and, making slits in the the
Yeah.
reflective pool.
Well, that
Like,
was an Olympian. That was a former Olympian. They,
oh, okay.
according,
That's
according to Sam Alito, though, they are degrading our citizenship. They are degrading the value of our citizenship. That is what they are doing.
well, let's talk about the birthright citizenship case that just was that transitions us perfectly because I think I hate all of the Supreme Court now. So
Yeah, I mean, look, 5 justices got it right, but this should have been 9-0. This should have been the so yeah. Let's go back a second. So the 14th Amendment says in its first sentence that all persons born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. It was passed in, 1871 or something, right after the Civil War. And it was the express purpose of it was to provide citizenship for anybody born in this country in an effort to make sure that children of slaves who, were their parents came over on a boat and then had a baby, that those people would be citizens and subject to all the benefits of the United States citizenship. And there was a law passed in 1866 concurrently that said basically the same thing. All persons born in the United States are citizens. That gave birthright. That's what birthright citizenship is.
yeah,
So Trump and I forgot to look up. I think this getting rid of birthright citizenship was in Project 2025. So Trump rolls into office, and this thing that nobody had thought was controversial at all, ever. Like 18 months ago, no one talked about birthright citizenship as being controversial. No one. Trump says, yeah, I think it sucks. So I'm going to issue an executive order saying that birthright citizenship is no more. Of course, that gets challenged, goes up to the Supreme Court. And, you had like one or two legal scholars writing some articles about that one phrase, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And they were like, that means some convoluted mechanism, that means that we don't actually have birthright citizenship the way everybody has understood it. And, if you're here illegally, you're not fully subject to the jurisdiction. And they give like 7 different reasons why. None of them make a whole lot of sense. And now all of a sudden it's in the right wing sphere, and away we go. So they get to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court at oral argument looks like it's going to go like 7-2 against. You can always count on Thomas and Alito to just be fucking insane. Uh, so
Fuck
it
Clarence
comes out,
Thomas.
and it's 5-4, and it's close, right? So it's like, okay, birthright citizenship is upheld, but like, of the 5 votes, Kavanaugh said he concurred in the decision, but dissented basically on the reasoning of the decision. And his reasoning, what he said was like, I don't think it's in the Constitution. I think Congress could write a law that, overturns birthright citizenship, but they haven't. So I have to agree. So he's now giving the lane to the Mike Johnsons of the world. So but that's what's really noticeable, that it was 5-4, right? This is plain English, right?
Yeah.
And you can kind of see in some of the dissents, Clarence Thomas wrote a 91-page dissent on this. The decision was 29 pages. 90 the whole upholding was 29 pages. 91 pages. You're writing 91 pages. You're really struggling to find something convincing. You're really trying, because it's just not there. And it's just not there. Like, this decision could have been 1 page.
Yeah.
Read
I
the
would have
14th
just
Amendment.
Yeah, I would have just copied and pasted the 14th Amendment.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Which
executive
probably is what
order is
should have been.
overturned. Here, boom, done.
Yes. Yeah.
But uh so that there are 4 justices that are willing to overturn this uh is alarming and staggering. And if we zoom out from just birthright citizenship, it's just another example of how how full of shit the right wing justices on the Supreme Court really are,
Yeah.
because their whole thing is originalism and textualism, and look to what's actually said, and look to the debates, and look to what was happening at the time that the amendment was passed, or the time the law was written, and look to all this stuff. Go back as far in history as you possibly can, because that's when it was all white men doing all the good stuff that we like, and there were no minorities or women involved, and we're going to get our best answer there. Well, if you do that for the 14th Amendment, you get a very clear answer. It applied to anybody born in the United States, period.
Yeah.
It's in the law. It's in the 1866 law. It's in the debates surrounding the amendment. They talked about whether it should not be that way, right? And they said they
Yeah.
all agreed no. It's in the 1898 Supreme Court case on this. It's on a law that was passed like 40 years ago. Everything points, if you're an originalist or a textualist, to, yeah, birthright citizenship exists. It's about as cut and dried as you could possibly ever get. They don't like it, so they're going to twist themselves in knots to go away from it, because they're full of shit. All their ideologies that they claim to have, they're nothing more than arrows in a quiver that they can pull when they want to find a result and lean on something. But ultimately, they're just seeking the result that they want.
I still don't. I don't fully understand the end game yet, and this is the part that's so hard for me to wrap my head around. Right? Everybody on the left talks about how stupid Trump is, and I don't think he's as stupid as people think he is. You don't get to where he's at by just falling up a ladder. Like, yes, he's a nepo baby. Yes, he does some terrible shit, but there is a lot more evil in this dude than I think people give him credit for. And I think the one thing he knows how to do is how to play a room. And he knows, if you think he's stupid, you don't take him at face value. You don't view him as the threat that he actually is, and the evil that's actually behind all this. And so the stupidness and the talking like an idiot and just saying dumb shit all the time, it feels like it's all a distraction to actually get to what he really wants, which is power and money, which is the root of all evil, correct? And so many of these decisions just feel so evil. They just feel so wrong. Like just blaming innocent people for things that are not that they had nothing to do with, and then taking all of your anger and frustration, and then furthermore leading a coalition of other awful people to like bringing them to the water. Basically, hey, these people are the root of all your problems, not me. And it's and it they're just drinking it up. And my frustration with all of this is just that, man, it just feels like there's a bigger game at play that's not being talked about enough. And the game at play just feels like it has to do with keeping his family, making sure they have more money than anybody else in the world, and as a result more power. And there's something in the immigration system, there's something about illegal immigrants that I'm missing, that is that by them eliminating birthright citizenship, there has to be some benefit to them maintaining power. And I know voting and all that kind of stuff, like typically brown and black people don't vote as heavily Republican, but I still think it might be deeper than that. And I haven't put my finger on it yet, but man, something about all of this feels way more master planned than we're giving them credit for, and B, I don't think we're recognizing how evil it all actually is. But
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Donald Trump, you hit on his superpower. His superpower is just kind of reading the room and knowing how he can, get people to follow him, how he can prey on people and sell whatever it is he wants to sell. Uh, that's clearly his superpower. Uh, but I don't think that he's like a deep thinker. And I don't. I think yes, he's transparently corrupt and enriching his own family, and we see that all over the place. But again, it's not hidden, right? We don't have to look deep for it, and he's transparently trying to consolidate power through redistricting and mail voting and things like that. Again, we don't have to look deep for it. It's all right on the surface. And I think with this one, I don't think he really cares about birthright citizenship, except that someone told him, hey, if you do this, it's great red meat for your base. You'll really get people fired up, and it'll be wonderful. And then you just honestly, you just toss in a nice healthy dose of racism, and away you go. It's not white people that he's mad about getting birthright citizenship, right? We all know
yeah,
that.
but think about it, and like I always think about it in the sense of like who I am. Like once I accomplish a goal, I'm on to the next one, right? And like if you're people that get to where he's gotten, there is always a scheme in play. There's always a work towards something, right? And maybe this is just my own self-reflection and not understanding his people as well as I think I do, but I think that Trump is way smarter than people are giving him credit for, especially the Democrats. And I think a lot of what's going on is far more evil than we are than they're letting on to as well. And ultimately, I think the goal is straight uh, oligarchy, potentially caste system type situation that.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I guess my question for you is like, okay, I believe that Trump is purely transactional. He does what is best for him at any given time, and that might mean, agreeing that he should do something about birthright citizenship, or agreeing about or tariffs, or start the Iran war, or stop the Iran war, or start it again, or listen to
Yeah.
Netanyahu, or whatever. I believe he's purely transactional. I believe he's a great salesman. But I also think that like you're searching for the evil, right? Is the corruption not the evil? Is the
Oh
seeking
no,
the
it
end of
is.
democracy? But so what are you looking for? It's there. Like
Yeah.
you're like when you talk, like when you lay that out, like you decry everything he's doing as evil, and then you say, I'm wondering what the evil is. It's there. Like you
Yeah.
know what
Fair
the
point.
evil is. It's right in front of you. And I think that's what people like that's one of the things that drives me a little bit crazy is like, no, no, no. We don't need to find some deeper evil to trying to rig elections or trying to overthrow elections, right? That is the evil. That's the
Yeah.
deeper evil right there. End the conversation and fix the problem.
Yeah, I guess it just feels like I guess I guess I want somebody to say it is that he wants world domination. It feels like
Yeah, no,
he feels like the
Derek,
bad
he
guy
wants
in a
world
superhero.
domination.
Yes, that's what I feel like every move that everything that happens in our country and in our world at the moment revolves around one question: does it benefit him and his family,
Yeah,
and or can they use the narrative to divert attention from the thing that they're actually trying to accomplish? But everything centers around this one goal, right? And it feels like that goal is master plan and master manipulated. And that's the part that like when you go on to Threads or X or Blue Sky and you just see all these people talking about all these different topics, it's like if you actually look at the thread that runs through them all, you're like, man, there is a thread, and the thread is that all of these things either distract us from something that Trump's doing or they benefit him. And the things that benefit him and his family towards achieving those goals, as soon as that starts to get too much attention, we're diverted by some other dumb shit that he does just to throw our attention off. And that's the part to me that I'm like, man, and maybe I guess I just don't know that I feel like we're falling for it, if that makes sense.
no,
That
we're absolutely falling for it.
we're
Yeah,
playing into the game, and maybe we're
but
even doing
but
that
the
by doing this
reason,
podcast. But
no, but no, I don't think so at all. Because the reason, at least for me, and like the reason that I have disliked Trump from the beginning,
Mhm.
from the very beginning, is because I think, honestly, I think I've seen him clearly for what he is all along. And what's
Yeah,
driven me the most crazy about it is that despite the glaring obviousness of his narcissism, of his selfishness, of his corruption, of his grift, which was plenty present from his inauguration in 2017 through today, right? It's always been plenty obvious and right in front of us. Despite all of that, there's this like need that smart people have and that media companies, now we know they're all on the take, but like that
yeah,
media people have to like say, well, that can't be right. He can't be so completely corrupt that like everybody's booking out his hotel in the old post office building in DC, just to get a meeting with him, and they get meetings with him after they do it. Can't possibly be correct. It's too obvious. No, no, that's it. It's that obvious. It's right fucking there. He's been
yes,
in the 1970s. He was sued by the Department of Justice for being a racist fucker in one of his apartment buildings. He had the Central Park Five ad calling for them all to be killed when they turned
right,
out to be innocent. The guy's been a racist his entire life. He's been a selfish bastard his entire life. He's only looked out for himself his entire life. He's been purely transactional his entire life. And now for 10 years, this drives me crazy. We struggle to find some answer other than the very obvious one, which is he gives zero shits about anybody but himself. And if there's something he can do that he sees a transactional benefit in that instant, he will do it. He doesn't care about the next instant. He'll figure that out when he gets to it, and it's worked for him. And somehow, just somehow, we haven't locked in on that yet. And it
yeah,
just seems so like he can be smarter than I want to give him credit for, but he's not more complex than I think
okay,
he is. I don't think he's complex at all. Whenever you throw a complex issue at him, he fails it. Tariffs are a complex issue. He fails it,
yeah.
right? COVID was a complex issue. He failed it. So, you know, smart,
Yeah, because
not
he doesn't
smart.
actually give a shit. It's You're
'Cause he doesn't.
correct. It's
That's
obvious.
right.
Everything goes back to money and power. So if you just follow, it's money and power for his family, and if you him and his family, and if you think anything beyond that, it just it doesn't like and everything else that comes up is essentially used as a diversion to keep you from paying attention to the fact that everything is about his money and
Yeah,
power.
the
So
whole conversation of like what's the hidden evil? Well, then you look to Stephen Miller and like Russell Vogt because they'll show you very plainly the hidden evil. But like it's just
that dude
he
looks
doesn't
evil.
care about good or evil, right? There is no hidden evil because I don't think there is a hidden plan beyond what you just said. How can I enrich myself?
Yeah. It'd be if you were to like artistically draw, like tell this story with never actually seeing the characters, but like give like an artist just the character description of Stephen Miller and Bannon, they would probably draw them as they are.
Yeah,
Like
Bannon for sure, who would look
they
exactly
look
like he looked.
they look like evil sons of bitches. So
Yeah.
it's which is hilarious. All right, well, let's stop shitting on Trump there because we could go all day. And then we just sound like every other podcast on the face of the planet.
Yeah,
Today,
we can shit
rather,
on some Democrats, right?
yeah, let's let's talk about Graham Platner. We're shifting a little bit from what we said we were going to do last week, and we're going to actually, and this Platner story hit me hard enough last night that I felt like, hey, I want to do an episode talking about the ethical and moral standards of our politicians and the electorate. Like how do we mince up and decide, you know, where the line is, like, because and we're experiencing this in real time. We see, guys like James Tallarico who are who look and feel, at the moment at least, I'm sure we're going to have some allegation come out about him, but that there is like a set of standards and values that abides by. And then we see guys like Trump and Ken Paxton and now we're looking at Graham Platner, who we had talked about before on a number of levels. First, because of the Nazi tattoo, which we ultimately ended up forgiving him for because of his explanation of it, and because he was, he was honest about it. This stuff is a little bit more dangerous with the woman that came out, and I watched the CNN interview with her and the allegations of rape against Platner, and apparently I think there may be another one as well. And so this is I think it's important that we talk through some of this stuff because, well, one, this hits home for me because I've been through this. I was married, got divorced. I met this woman after my first divorce that was borderline obsessed with me, and basically the only thing that I liked, that she liked me. What I didn't realize is that when the pendulum swung back the other direction, that it was actually going to be way worse. And our marriage, we ended up eloping, which was the dumbest thing that I've ever done. If I could have a mulligan, I would. Um, but there were a number of situations that came up in our relationship that she accused me of being abusive. And I've never touched another human being in my life. And she accused me of physical abuse, emotional abuse, and spiritual abuse to a number of people. She also went as far as to try and get a restraining order against me, which apparently she got laughed out of the room by a judge because she had never filed a police report, had no evidence of any kind of abuse, and then when she presented our text arguments, the judge was like, this is a fight between a couple. This isn't him threatening. I had never said anything threatening, never said I was going to like try to come to your apartment or come try to find you, nothing like that. So he was like, yeah, none of this actually makes sense. So I've been on the receiving end, and that situation, this woman got a hold of all of my clients and contacts and sent this message out to everybody, and it destroyed my life for years. Like, it ultimately ended up being one of the best things for me because it forced me to actually grow from it. But man, like, these allegations are serious, and they're serious in a number of levels. And the worst part about them were that I think she genuinely believed a lot of it. I think the fervency in which she spoke about her hatred for me at the time, she genuinely thought that I was abusive. And I learned this because we were in a therapy session. We started therapy even after she moved out of our house. The therapist, we were in therapy, and she made the accusation that I was emotionally and spiritually abusive, and admitted to our therapist that I was never physically abusive to her and her son, which thank God. But uh the accusation of emotional abuse was the biggest one for me, and her explanation of that was, we Derek gets mad, we fight, and then, afterwards he comes and apologizes, but then we end up going through the same process over again. And, that is the definition of abuse. Like, it never changes. And our therapist looked at her and was like, well, okay, like if that's the definition of abuse that you're looking at, would you define yourself as abusive to him as well? She obviously she lost her shit, walked out, and that was the end of therapy and the end of our marriage. I filed for divorce a week after that. Um, so all of that to say is that the allegation of something and the reality of it are very different. And here's the thing that I'm struggling with the Platner thing. Because I genuinely love the platform that Platner stood on. Like his talking points, what he believes in for our country, the future of our country, what he believed in for Maine. There was so much about him that I thought was amazing. And my struggle with this situation is that one, we'd heard rumblings of something happening, but like I struggle in general because, I want to hear his side of the story. I want to hear him come out and actually talk about this to find out if, like, is what she said accurate? Like, because if it is, yeah, fuck off, get out of here. Like that is a absolute disqualifier. The flip side of it is that when you get inside of a marriage relationship and you are
They
judging
weren't
people,
married.
or sorry, any kind of relationship, when you get into the inner workings of a relationship and you're judging somebody off of their worst moments, I think we would all look like fucking assholes and be uprooted from our lives if people knew the shit that we have potentially said to our spouses or somebody else. I've said some of the worst shit to my exes and even Tamara at times when I'm at my lowest points. And thank God that she's forgiven me for a lot of that stuff, but she's also done similar things to me. So there is there is a balance in some of this stuff that I'm trying to understand. And, like, and furthermore, like if you were raped, like, why was there not a police report filed? Like, why was there? And look, I understand that people don't believe women. I understand that there's like a lot of other things that go on around that, but like, I don't know, like there's certain things that I'm like, yeah, I, I'm not just going to jump on the ship because somebody said it and everybody else is jumping on it at the moment. Like having been through this, I'm like, yeah, I want a little bit more. Like I want to understand that this person isn't just like my ex-wife who is
Do you
pressing
hold
the
the same standard for Ken Paxton,
uh
For Brett Kavanaugh?
in what sense?
So Brett Kavanaugh was accused of sexually assaulting Christine Blasey Todd. She got in front of Congress, in front of the world, testified in some detail to what he did to her. He responded with screaming anger. And, he is a justice of the Supreme Court who we despise. Did you at the time say, well, he was in high school and, all people in high school do dumb shit. So, you know, I know I did dumb shit in high school, so it's okay. Do you hold Ken Paxton? And this is not like I'm sorry if I
And
come
I'm not
across as strong because I hate that happened to you. But like, do you look at Ken Paxton and say like, well, he was a dick to his wife, but maybe his wife was a dick to him, and it's okay that just because what I think is happening here, I think there's a couple things happening. You said at the beginning, like, where do we draw the line? And I
Mhm.
don't think that's a question that has any merit. because what I see happening is we keep erasing the line and redrawing it somewhere else. And you can't keep erasing the line and redrawing it somewhere else and then look up sometime when you don't like where you are and you're like, well, I don't know where we draw the line. It's like, no, we drew it like 8 different places along the way and you
Mhm.
erased it each time. And now you don't like all of a sudden that Platner with, a wonderful theory of power that I completely agree with, who, I think is a really compelling political candidate. I've had my reservations about him, I think, for a while. Uh, now you get to the point where it's like it's your guy, and you either have the standard or you don't. You either, believe if you believed Christine Blasey Todd with Brett Kavanaugh as she stood up and testified, then you have to believe the woman who's going through a rather startling interview with Jake Tapper. Like I listened to most of
Mhm.
that. Like there's enough meat on the bones there for me to be like, yeah, nope, fucking guy did it, right? Absolutely, he
Mhm.
did it. There's enough corroboration. There's enough credibility to her. The timelines kind of match before he became a candidate that she was telling people about this years before. It's not the first time. There's Reddit threads where he's a fucking, misogynistic asshole.
Yeah.
There's other people that we hand waved away because she worked for the Heritage Foundation, the woman a month ago. So to me, I look at this and I'm just like, you know, I've had this criticism on the progressive left about Israel for a while, and now it's the same criticism. Like either we have the values and we demand the values that we are angry at the Republicans for not giving a shit about, or we don't. Now,
Mhm.
do you believe every allegation that comes out? No, I agree with that. But at some point, at some point you just look at it and you have to be able to say, nope, this guy, like, look, he's not going to jail for this. Okay. And his life is probably better than it was before because he's now extremely popular around the country. He's a household name, or he can always go back to being an oyster farmer. Okay. But is he acceptable as a candidate for a senator of the United States, given everything we know about him? Absolutely not. To me, it's just clean as day. We have to have the line, and when it gets crossed, maybe there's two. Maybe the first time we hear the allegation, we're like, okay, I need to know more. What are the motivations, blah blah blah. But at some point, the weight of evidence has to come down and be like, nope, sorry, dude. Like, love your platform, but I hold my standards to a certain level. I hold my senators to a certain level. It's why I think Ken Paxton is such a piece of shit, right? He's
Mhm.
shown himself to be a valueless piece of shit. I don't care what his policies are, right? He's a
Yeah.
corrupt criminal. He
Yeah.
shouldn't be senator. Doesn't matter what party he works for. We kicked out Swalwell like a couple months ago. Good, right? So the only thing that's different here is people, the progressive left. They really love Platner. That's it. To me, that's the only
Yeah.
difference.
The I disagree. I think there's a couple of differences. One, a lot of what Ken Paxton has done is he's used the power of his office and different situations to benefit his own life. In full disclosure, I didn't know much about the Brett Kavanaugh situation. I haven't followed enough of Ken Paxton's criminal record until I didn't start getting into it until Tallarico was running against him, and so which just happened recently. So a lot of the Ken Paxton stuff, outside of hearing rumblings of how terrible of a person he was, and his office, like even his wife voting to get him out, that kind of stuff. But I think the question that I'm wrestling with is what level of evidence do we need before deciding somebody is unfit for office? um and this is what I'm asking myself, because yeah, I don't want to just sit here and disqualify a candidate that has a lot of policy and plans that I agree with, while we're talking about guys like Ken Paxton that could win. Penn
That was
Caxton.
my guy, Ken
I know this
Caxton.
is, yeah, fuck you for messing me up on that. But like and having a guy like Trump in office, and then it just feels it feels often like there's a lot of virtue signaling from the left. Like these things come out and we jump so quick to make a decision about what happened, who's going on, and we haven't even heard from Platner yet. On I've heard nothing from him about the allegations other than yeah, they're not accurate. Like, and there's parts of me that's been in now understanding those situations and having been in them is and being claimed to be abusive. I'm like, yeah, like, okay, what was going on? And look, if he validates the story, then yeah, of course that I'd be like, yeah,
He's
dude.
not going to validate the story. First of all, the story is that he was blackout drunk,
Yeah,
right?
was she drinking? Like,
She
what was
says she
this?
was not. She was
Okay,
home. He was out at a bar. She sent, he somehow there was some communication. She said, don't come over. He came over.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
she asked him the next morning, do you remember at all what happened last night? And he was like, nope, not at all. So the story is that he was blackout drunk. So he
Oh,
might be completely honest when he says, I never did that, because he might simply not remember it.
yeah. And look, again, this isn't me standing up for Graham Platner in the sense of like, hey, I don't think Platner should be should relinquish himself from running, because yeah, at this point I'm honestly of the opinion that I don't think he should be there. And listening to her talk, she was fully believable. I'm not arguing that. But I still would like to hear from him on this. He addressed the Nazi tattoo with a level of honesty that was refreshing when I heard him talk
I don't
about
think
it.
he was
And
honest about the Nazi tattoo.
you don't think he was?
That he didn't know what it was? No, I don't think he was
Oh,
honest about that for a second.
I think that more of what I'm talking about was just that he was like, "Look, yeah, I got it." Because the clip that actually
That I believe he
introduced
was
me to
honest.
him, yeah, the clip that introduced me to Grant Plattner was him being like, "Yeah, I got it, and I was a idiot, and I was young and in the military, and it was dumb, and I made a mistake, and I grew, and I don't believe in those things anymore, and so I moved on." And so, yes, like there are things that absolutely should disqualify candidates. And so I guess where do we go from here? How do we decide? Because it genuinely feels like we're playing two different games. Republicans are like, we don't fucking care what this guy did. This guy advances our policies and runs our country. And look at where our country is at now because of that. Republicans literally do not care if their candidates have moral values or not. They care if their candidate is going to further their agenda. If their candidate is going to, go hard on, lock immigrants up and make sure women can't have abortions. That's all they care about. And so like from the left, we have this virtue signaling that we do, and then we disregard the policy, and then we end up settling for a candidate that either can't win or doesn't actually have the political policies that we want, that are going to actually change America, and the balls to stand up and push them through. And that's, I guess, what I'm waiting for
It's
is
not
I
virtue signaling if you actually believe it. Okay. And that to me is where this comes down to. It's like, we can have, there's a discussion to be had, I suppose, some other day about like what is the threshold. And this is a gross conversation, by the way. What is
yeah,
the threshold that a woman needs to meet in order for us white men to believe that somebody in power with a drinking problem, actually did the things that she says he did? And
correct.
okay, sure, that's another conversation to be had. And you're right. We are playing a different game. You're absolutely right. The Republicans, they have repeatedly said that they care nothing about the morality of their candidates. They care solely about power and cementing power and crazy ass, extremist policies.
Yeah,
But I am one guy with one vote. Okay. And the question for me that I ask is, what will I give up to elect Graham Platner? What will I give up to elect Andrew Cuomo? Right? What will I give
yeah,
up to elect any like sort of shitbag Democrat? Because I'm not going to give up much to elect a shitbag Republican. and the line has to be close. I'm not
Yeah.
really saying it has to be in exactly the same place. And here's the thing. Okay, I'm going to shift back to the Nazi tattoo for a second because I think there's an interesting parallel. We talked last week about, I sort of lost my brain for a couple minutes about the extremism, how the extremism of the right, and how are the Republicans going to counter the DSA, and they're going to do it through fear. Okay, we talked a lot about that. For Jewish Americans, the amount of fear that immediately enters into the equation when they see the left allow a guy with a Nazi tattoo to become a popular, well-funded, populist nature candidate for Senate, right? When they move that line away from Nazi tattoo, no, to Nazi tattoo, yeah, okay, because we like what he stands for. Okay, here's where that goes in the minds of Jewish Americans, and I think this is a reasonable fear to have. You can decide how to weigh it, but you cannot ignore this fear. You have a number of DSA candidates who are virulently anti-Israel, right? And they couch it in anti-Zionism, and we don't like what the state of Israel is doing. But man, it sure feels like they don't like Jewish people an awful lot of the time, right? And the left is going like, no, it's all okay because we like their policies. Because Mamdani's doing a good job, and Mamdani's doing a good job, and I like Mamdani. Okay, like I'm not backtracking on what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when we allow that line to shift, we run the risk of waking up in a place where we don't like what that line is. And I can tell you for Jewish Americans, you can look at Platner and a Nazi tattoo and it's being accepted by the left. You can look at Hassan Piker and El Sayed in Michigan and some of the crazier candidates in New York City that are backed by Mamdani. And you can see how much they seem to hate Jews, even if they're not saying it outright, and they're being accepted by the left. Where are we going to wake up? On what side of the line, right? Like, what
Yeah.
do we allow before they say, yeah, no, I'm coming after all the Jews? And then the left is like, oh my God, well, we didn't know that was going to happen. It's like, no. We knew for a year that Graham Platner was a fucking shitbag. We had plenty of online stuff. We had the first allegation. We had a whole bunch of stuff. And now the progressive left is waking up all surprised, like, oh my God, I didn't know he was that guy. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You just fucking ignored it because you like him. That's all. We ignored it because we liked him. No difference, right? Credit to Michelle Goldberg, who I think writes for the Atlantic or the Times, who put an apology out on social media because she did an article in October about him. And she said in her apology, she was like, blame also goes to me because when I met him in October, I was overcome with his charisma and the power of his message and his campaign speech, and I was willing to overlook everything on Reddit as just being, like one-offs and the caterwauling of people online and stuff like this. And I was wrong. It is who he is, but I allowed myself to be blinded. She's right. That's what we have to look out for because on to a sexual assault victim, they're waking up today and they're going, we're going to fucking elect another rapist to a
Yeah.
Senate position, this time a Democrat. The woman who was on Jake Tapper, she's like, I didn't want to come forward. I like what he's saying. I want him. I want his position as a senator in Maine. That's why I didn't come out before because I like what he stands for, but I just can't
I didn't
have
hear
it.
that.
It's not honest. Right? No, she
Yeah.
said it directly. So it's like for a sexual assault victim, they're waking up today and they're going, God damn it again,
Yeah.
right? And as a Jewish American, you got Platner with a fucking Nazi tattoo, and you got this line moving always, always,
Yeah.
always. Where are we going to wake up? That is a fear. That is a real fear that is held by a lot of people I know. And this example from Platner illustrates exactly how that fear comes to pass. And it is the progressive left that have stuck their necks out for him, that have egg on their face, and that have allowed it. Now,
Yeah.
I am no fan of Schumer. Schumer standing up for Andrew Cuomo is exactly the same thing on the other side. But when we talk about where do we draw the line, you draw your line, I drew my line, we all draw our own lines, but we have to hold them regardless of whether or not we like the guy.
Yeah.
If Tallarico comes out and he's got a fucking Nazi tattoo and a Confederate flag in his Bible, I'm not voting for the fucking guy. Okay? Because
You're
that crosses the line, and that
yeah.
hurts me, right? That hurts me because I want to vote for guys that have such strong policies.
Yeah.
but I can't do it if I'm going to credibly sit there and say Donald Trump is a rapist, even though, there were no police reports filed.
Yeah.
So to me, it's the wrong question. That
Yeah.
where do we draw the line? It's the wrong question.
I'm not going to disagree with you there. And look, my I think my biggest fear with all of this is, and like I said, I'm out on Platner for the most part. I still would like to hear him talk about this at some point, and I hope he addresses it directly. But yes, I believe women when they say that these things have happened, and especially in any kind of credible situation. And granted, I only saw the clips of all of that. I think that you're correct. It speaks to a bigger problem of like who's running as a Democrat in essence, but like it feels like there's a playbook now for the right to destroy anyone on the left, which is just
The
basically
left does
throw in
that
a
too, though.
let's throw in a sexual assault allegation. And granted, the stuff with Platner, this was 2021, so this isn't like this was like from 2002 in a bar in Iraq or something during a military thing. This was like a few years ago. So yeah, there's a lot about this situation that's fucked up. I wanted to kind of like wrap this part of it up with this, because I don't think the goal should be to elect perfect people. We're not going to get there. And I think that's the sentiment that I wanted to come across from the start. But I do think we need to elect people that demonstrate honesty when they've made mistakes, accountability rather than deflection, that they respect our actual rule of law, their willingness to tell the truth, even when it costs them, and specifically costs them politically, and they conduct themselves, their conduct doesn't undermine the trust of the public. If you are going to run for office, it should be something that is respected enough for you to not lie to the people. And I think that's the situation that I'm in. I'm not expecting perfection. I'm just expecting honesty more than anything, and accountability. And man, it feels like it's fucking impossible to find.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mostly agree with you. Like, it's silly to expect that uh, candidates for Senate and President and House are going to be perfect people, especially when I don't know that much about this, but I've heard a couple people talk about it who like study the psychological makeup of people like that, and they're like damaged, borderline sociopaths. Like it's more like you have to be fucked up in order to seek the presidency of the United States or to be a senator. You have to have some level of narcissism,
Yeah.
and that's gonna and that level of narcissism is closely correlated to other types of behaviors that we might find abhorrent. So it's not perfection, and yet it is honesty and accountability, but it is also like we have to turn that lens on ourselves, right? And I don't, and that's the most interesting part about this is just, you know, there were warnings about this guy all along, right?
Yeah.
His campaign manager quit like last October because she said, no, this is not your guy. This is not your guy. Don't go with this guy. She was talking to the Democrats all along,
Mm.
trying to give warnings out, and it's just my, to me, this whole thing just shows the danger of permissiveness because you happen to like someone and their policies, and when you are permissive to somebody like that, you at the same time you allow a bunch of shit that in the in the individual instance doesn't seem that bad, but in the aggregate leads to truly horrible things. Uh, you know, we allow Donald Trump to do horrible things all through his life, and then in the aggregate, all of a sudden he's president of the United States doing them on a worldwide scale.
Yeah.
We allow Nazi tattoos. We allow people to speak with rhetoric that really touches up on anti-Semitism. Where does that? What is the other side of that line? Right?
Yeah.
We allow sexual abusers, misogynistic men to lever their power against women and get away with it over and over and over again. What is the other side of that line? And we have to think about that before we move the line.
Yeah.
And I think that we Democrats, where we virtue signal, to get back to that term, is we virtue signal when we scream at, and your rebuttal about Paxton is well founded, right? Like he has already used his office for corrupt means. But we
Mhm.
screamed about it in 2016 with Donald Trump and the grab him by the pussy audio clip and all that stuff. Like, that's where we virtue signal. We Democrats, we are the party that listens to the women until we don't.
Yeah.
We Democrats, we are the party that pays attention to microaggressions and symbols of hate and death till we don't, right? And more now, we're on the until we don't side of things. And this is a
Yeah.
great example of it. We let a lot of shit go because we want to get Susan Collins the fuck out of there. And that
Yeah.
is no more complex than that. And
Yeah.
then it's virtue. Then, yep. Now the rest of it is just virtue signaling the next time.
Yeah, there's a hard line to ride here of having compassion while also allowing due process to play out. And like that's the it's a balance because yeah, I want to believe people. I definitely do. And for me personally, I've been through hell with somebody that just straight bold face lied. And so, yeah, I question everything people say and on both sides of it too. Men as well. I've heard men say some of the dumbest shit ever and lie about different situations that have come up. So, but
Yeah, the thing that it's sorry, it's just important. It's not a due process question for him,
yeah,
right? It just isn't. Due
I
process
agree.
is
I
you
think there's
having an
enough.
opportunity.
I
But
would
no, it's
agree.
not
I'm
even the weight of the allegations. It's like what is his loss, right? Like, and what did he stand to gain, and what arena did he play in? So, is the standard what is the different standard? I haven't thought about this, so I don't have a coherent answer. But like, you know, I I understand why you hear stuff like this and you go through the thought process that you do. I hear it and I hear your story and I think these are not the same. The foundation of these stories is not the same
I would
because
agree with that
the
too. Yeah.
harm that Derek can do if we're wrong about Derek is de minimis. The harm that Platner can do if we're wrong about Platner is huge.
Yeah.
So it is a different line to me, and it is a different analysis for a candidate for there are 100 senators in this country. 100. Yeah, it's a different line.
Yeah. Fair point. Well, are we telling me to shut the fuck up today? Is that
No,
I
no.
feel like
Sorry, you told me I could disagree with you, so in we go.
Oh, dude, I appreciate it and I respect it.
Sports fan Donald Trump, shut the fuck up. All
This is
right, like
perfect. This is
whatever.
exactly what we
Anything
needed.
else, like it's too obvious with Donald Trump. But his record now of trying to get into to be a sports fan in any way, it is he is 0 for the last like 6 years. It's just amazing. You everybody in the United States had to know when he had that red card suspended, or the suspension suspended. They're like, fuck. Certainly every Knick fan was like, God damn it, it's over.
The Lions fan
US
with
US
Amon-Ra St. Brown doing the Trump dance. Dude, I should have gone out and bet all of my money on Belgium as
yeah.
soon as I heard that come down.
Yeah, it's like they're totally gonna lose now. It goes to the Knick game, they lose it. It's the only game they lost in like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Was when he was there, right? Damon Rod, it's an incredible record of just utility and loss, and everything Trump touches dies. So in order to keep the games pure, because it has to be, some sort of cosmic interference, in order to just at least keep our sports as pure as they can be in the age of billions of dollars, Donald Trump, the sports fan, don't do anybody any favors. Shut the fuck up. Watch Fox News. Pretend sports doesn't exist. Stay the fuck out of it. And let's have like a cosmically uncorrupted game, sports year throughout the year.
well put, and a much more lighthearted. Shut the fuck up, considering that today's conversation was a little bit heavier. So,
Yeah.
What are we talking about next week?
We can go back to LBJ, who apparently has a giant cock that he used to show on the Senate floor.
Well, I'm not Googling that. So All right.
One of our several loyal listeners sent that to me.
Well, tune in next week, everybody, to see LBJ's giant cock on the Senate floor.